The Pacific wind cut across Naval Base Coronado like a knife edge, sharp and cold even in late afternoon sun. Salt spray from the bay mixed with diesel exhaust in gun oil. That particular smell every sailor knows. The smell of readiness, of violence held in check. Reese Kavanaugh stood on the edge of the obstacle course, watching 20 recruits struggle through the rope climb. Her boots were planted shoulder-width apart, arms crossed, face unreadable. At 28 years old, she carried herself like carved granite. No wasted movement, no unnecessary words, just presence. One of the recruits slipped, caught himself, kept climbing. Reese said nothing, didn't need to. The kid knew she was watching, and that was enough. Behind her, footsteps approached on gravel, heavy, measured, the walk of a man who'd earned every step. Kavanaugh, she turned. Master Chief Declan Hargrave stood 6 feet back, hands clasped behind him. 58 years old, gray at the temples, lines around his eyes that came from squinting into desert sun. Gulf War, Navy Cross on his dress blues. The kind of man who didn't raise his voice because he never needed to. Master Chief, she said. He nodded toward the recruits. They getting better? Some. Just some? Most will wash out by week 3. Hargrave smiled faintly. You washed anyone out personally yet? No need. The course does it for me. He studied her for a moment, the way senior enlisted study junior personnel when they were deciding whether to say something that mattered or let it slide. You eating? He asked. Yes, Master Chief. Sleeping? Enough. That's not an answer. Reese met his eyes. 4 hours, same as always. Hargrave sighed. Not disapproval, understanding. He'd been there himself, years ago, when sleep felt like weakness and vigilance felt like survival. Walk with me, he said. They moved away from the course, down toward the waterline where the noise fell away and the Pacific stretched out forever. Pelicans skimmed the surface. Somewhere a ship's horn sounded, low and mournful. You know what today is? Hargrave asked. Reese glanced at him. Thursday. 10 years ago today, he said quietly, my daughter died in a training accident. Parachute malfunction. She was 22. Reese stopped walking. She'd heard the story before, bits and pieces, but never from him directly. Her name was Claire, Hargrave continued. Wanted to be a pilot, smart as hell, stubborn as hell. Reminded me of someone. He looked at Reese when he said it. She didn't respond, didn't know how. Point is, Hargrave said, I see her sometimes, in you, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you don't let anyone close. He paused. That's not living, Kavanaugh. That's just surviving. Surviving works, Reese said, for a while. Hargrave turned toward the water. Then it doesn't. They stood in silence. Waves rolled in. Wind tugged at their uniforms. There's talk, Hargrave said finally, about you. Reese's jaw tightened. There's always talk. This is different. Staff Sergeant Thorne and his crew, they're saying things. Let them. I'm not talking about locker room bullshit, Hargrave said, voice dropping. I'm talking about something darker, something that feels wrong. Reese looked at him. You think they're planning something? I think men with wounded pride do stupid things, and Thorne's pride is very wounded. I can handle Thorne. I know you can, Hargrave said. I'm not worried about whether you can handle yourself. I'm worried about what happens when you do. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folding knife. Old, weathered, the handle worn smooth from years of use. This was with me in the Gulf, he said, holding it out. Carried it through every firefight, never used it, but knowing it was there made a difference. Reese hesitated, then took it. The weight was good, balanced. Just in case, Hargrave said. Trust your instincts, Kavanaugh. They've kept you alive this long. She slipped the knife into her pocket. Thank you, Master Chief. He nodded, started to walk back toward the base, then stopped. One more thing, he said. If something happens this weekend, if things go sideways, you call me. Doesn't matter what time. You understand? I understand. But she wouldn't call. They both knew it. Reese Kavanaugh didn't call for help. Hadn't in 8 years. Not since the night that changed everything. The night she learned that the only person you could truly count on was yourself. 6 months earlier, the desert had been merciless. The training facility sprawled across 12,000 acres of nothing. Sand, rock, heat that made the air shimmer like water. This was where they broke the weak ones, where overconfidence met reality, and reality always won. Reese had been stationed there 3 weeks. Just another rotation, another set of recruits to mold into something resembling functional operators. She ran the combatives course, the close quarters battle drills, the parts where technique mattered more than muscle. That's where Staff Sergeant Marcus Thorne first noticed her. He came to observe one morning, leaning against the doorway of the training hall, while Reese demonstrated a disarm technique on a volunteer. The volunteer was bigger, heavier, confident. He grabbed her from behind, arms locked around her chest, thinking size would be enough. 3 seconds later, he was on the mat, gasping, her knee between his shoulder blades, and his arm hyperextended at an angle that made everyone watching wince. Control, Reese said, not breathing hard. Not strength. Control. She released him, helped him up, reset the drill. The volunteer rubbed his shoulder, respect and embarrassment mixing on his face. Thorne watched the whole thing with the expression of a man seeing something he wanted and hadn't realized he wanted until that moment. After the session, he approached. 32 years old, movie star jaw, the kind of smile that had opened a lot of doors and closed a lot of doubts. 3 deployment ribbons, expert marksman qualification, the natural charisma that made junior enlisted want to follow him and senior enlisted want to promote him. Impressive, he said, falling into step beside her as she headed toward the armory. Reese glanced at him. Thank you, Staff Sergeant. Marcus, he said, we don't need to be formal. I prefer formal. His smile didn't falter. Fair enough. You're new here, right? Kavanaugh? That's correct. Where'd you train? That disarm technique, that's not standard curriculum. Personal study, Reese said. They reached the armory door. She stopped, turned to face him, making it clear the conversation was ending. Well, Thorne said, if you ever want to grab coffee sometime, compare notes on technique, I know a good spot off base. I appreciate the offer, Reese said, but no. Not rude, not apologetic, just no. Thorne's smile held, but something shifted behind his eyes. A flicker. Brief. Gone almost immediately. No problem, he said. Maybe another time. I don't think so. She went inside, closed the door. Thorne stood there for a moment, alone in the corridor, smile fading. He wasn't used to that, to flat rejection, to women who didn't even soften the blow with excuses or explanations. Just no. He walked back toward the barracks, hands in his pockets, mind already working on the problem. Because that's what Reese Kavanaugh had become in that moment, a problem that needed solving. Over the next 4 months, Thorne tried again. Different approaches, different angles, different strategies designed to break through her defenses. He brought her coffee during morning PT. She thanked him, left it untouched on the bench. He offered technical advice on her training curriculum, suggestions wrapped in compliments. She listened politely, didn't implement any of it. He invited her to informal squad gatherings, movie nights, beach volleyball games. She declined every time. Always polite, always professional, always no. His crew noticed. Garrett Finch, 26, compact build, boxer's hands, the kind of guy who settled arguments with fists and felt good about it after. Cole Vickers, 24, lean and quick, always had his phone out, always recording something, always looking for content. Owen Dalton, 22, fresh-faced, eager to prove himself to the older men, eager to belong to something bigger than himself. They watched Thorne's repeated attempts and subsequent failures with a mixture of sympathy and amusement. "She's ice cold, man," Garrett said one evening in the rec room. "Doesn't even blink when you talk to her." "She blinks," Thorne said. "She's just not interested." "In you?" Cole laughed. "That's a first." Thorne didn't laugh, stared at his beer bottle instead, picking at the label with his thumbnail. "Maybe she's got someone," Owen offered. "Like back home or something." "She doesn't," Thorne said. "How do you know?" "I asked around." Thorne looked up. "No boyfriend, no girlfriend, no anything. She just keeps to herself." "Some people are like that," Owen said. "Nobody's like that," Garrett said. "Not really. Everyone needs something. Everyone wants something." "Maybe she doesn't need anything from us," Cole said, scrolling through his phone. Thorne set his beer down harder than necessary. "She thinks she's better than everyone here. That's the problem. Walks around like we're beneath her. Like our attention is an insult." The others went quiet. The tone had shifted. What started as friendly ribbing had developed an edge. "Come on, man," Owen said. "She's just focused. Doesn't mean she thinks she's better." "Doesn't it?" Thorne leaned back. "You seen the way she looks at people? Like we're specimens under glass? Like she's studying us and finding us lacking?" Garrett nodded slowly. Yeah, I've seen that. She made Peterson look like an idiot during that breach drill last week," Cole added. "In front of everyone." "Peterson made himself look like an idiot," Owen said. "He didn't clear the corner." "She didn't have to embarrass him about it. She was doing her job." "Her job," Thorne said quietly, "is to train personnel, not make them feel like shit for not being as perfect as she is." Silence settled over the table. The television in the corner played SportsCenter at low volume. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed, the sound distant and disconnected from the tension building in this room. "So what?" Garrett said finally. "What do you want to do about it?" Thorne didn't answer right away. Turned his beer bottle in slow circles on the table, condensation leaving wet rings on the wood. "Nothing," he said. "Yet." But that word, yet, it hung in the air like smoke, like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. 2 weeks later, Reese led a night navigation exercise. 12 recruits, full gear, 20 clicks through rough terrain with nothing but compass and starlight to guide them. She moved through the darkness like she'd been born in it. No flashlight, no hesitation, no uncertainty. The recruits struggled to keep pace, stumbling over rocks, cursing under their breath, wondering how she made it look so easy. Thorne and his crew had volunteered as safety observers, positioned at checkpoints along the route. Standard procedure, nothing unusual, just experienced personnel making sure the training went smoothly. Except at checkpoint 3, Garrett radioed ahead to checkpoint 4, where Thorne was waiting. "She's coming up on you," Garrett said. "Alone, about 50 meters out." "Copy," Thorne said. He waited in the darkness, listening to footsteps approach. Light, quick, confident. Then she was there, emerging from the shadows like a ghost. "Checkpoint 4, Thorne said, shining his red lens flashlight briefly to mark position. Reese stopped, checked her compass, marked her map. Didn't look at him. Didn't acknowledge him beyond the professional necessity of the checkpoint. "You're making good time," Thorne said. "The recruits aren't. They'll catch up. You could slow down. Make it easier for them." "Easier doesn't make them better." Thorne stepped closer. Not threatening, just closing distance, testing boundaries. "You know," he said, "you don't have to be alone all the time. Some of us, we'd like to get to know you. The real you." Reese looked up from her map. Her eyes in the dim light were flat, emotionless, like looking into still water. "This is the real me," she said, "and I prefer alone." She moved past him, disappeared into the darkness. Thorne stood there, red flashlight still in hand, jaw tight, something cold settling in his chest. Garrett's voice crackled over the radio. "How'd it go?" Thorne didn't respond immediately, stared into the darkness where she'd vanished. "Fine," he said finally. everything's fine. But it wasn't. Something had calcified in him that night. Rejection had fermented into resentment, resentment into something harder and uglier. The kind of thing that, once born, only grew. The smoke pit behind the maintenance hangar was unofficial territory. Not on any map, not part of any duty station. Just a place where people went when they wanted to talk without being overheard. 4 men stood in the weak, yellow light from a single bulb. Cigarette smoke drifted up into the night. Somewhere far off, a generator hummed its mechanical lullaby. Thorne leaned against the railing, boot hooked on the lower bar. The other 3 stood in a loose semicircle, waiting for him to speak. When Thorne had something to say, you listened. She shut down Anderson yesterday, Garrett said, during quals. Made him restart the entire sequence because his muzzle discipline was sloppy. It was sloppy, Owen said. That's not the point. The point is she does it in front of everyone. No discretion, no mercy, just public humiliation. She's an instructor, Owen said. That's literally her job. Garrett turned on him. Whose side are you on? There are no sides. You're just saying she's right to humiliate people? I'm saying she's doing her job. Her job, Thorne said quietly, is to make operators, not to make herself feel superior. They all looked at him. When Thorne spoke, you listened. That was the unspoken rule. The hierarchy that existed beneath the official ranks. Every guy who's tried to approach her, Thorne continued, every single one she's shut down. Politely, professionally, like we're not even worth the effort of a real explanation. Maybe she's just not interested, Owen said. In anyone? Ever? That's not normal, that's not human. Cole lit another cigarette. What are you getting at, Marcus? Thorne was quiet for a long moment, working through something in his head, testing the weight of words before he spoke them. People who act untouchable, he said finally, sometimes need reminding that they're not. The statement landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading outward. What does that mean? Owen asked. Thorne looked at him. Means maybe someone needs to level the playing field. Bring her down to earth. Show her she's human, like the rest of us. How? Garrett asked, leaning forward. Another pause. Longer this time. Party this Saturday, Thorne said. Carter's place, off base, casual, everyone's invited. Including her, Cole said. Especially her. Owen shifted his weight, uncomfortable. What exactly are you planning? Nothing, Thorne said. Just a conversation, a real one, where she can't hide behind professionalism and protocols. He flicked his cigarette into the gravel, where the walls come down and she has to be honest about who she really is. Garrett smiled slowly. How are you going to make that happen? Thorne didn't answer directly, just looked at each of them in turn, making sure they understood without having to say it explicitly. You trust me? He asked. Yeah, Garrett said immediately. Cole nodded. Always. Owen hesitated, then nodded too. Yeah. Good, Thorne said. Then let me handle the details. You just show up Saturday night and make sure word gets to Kavanaugh about the party. Casual, like it's no big deal. And if she doesn't come, Cole asked. She'll come, Thorne said. She's too curious not to. She'll want to see what we're about when we're off duty. Want to confirm whatever assumptions she's already made about us. He pushed off the railing, ground out his cigarette with his boot heel. Saturday night, he said again, everything changes. They dispersed into the darkness, each man walking away with different thoughts. Garrett felt excitement, the prospect of action after weeks of frustration. Cole felt curiosity, wondering what Thorne had planned, what footage he might get. Owen felt dread. But none of them said no. None of them walked away. Because once you're part of a crew, once you pledge loyalty to the men beside you, saying no becomes the hardest word in any language. Reese sat in her quarters, cleaning her sidearm. Field stripped, each component laid out on a towel in precise order. Barrel, slide, recoil spring, frame. The ritual was meditative, muscle memory and routine, a way to quiet the mind while keeping the hands busy. Her quarters were sparse: bed, desk, footlocker, no pictures on the walls, no personal items visible. Everything she owned could be packed in 30 minutes. That was intentional. Never get too comfortable. Never put down roots. Because the moment you did, that's when you became vulnerable. A knock at the door broke the silence. "Come in." Bryn Ashford entered. 19 years old, blonde hair pulled back in a regulation bun. Idaho farm girl who'd enlisted to escape small-town expectations and prove she was more than anyone back home thought she could be. She worked part-time in the admin office while completing her training pipeline. "Sorry to bother you, ma'am," Bryn said. Reese didn't look up from reassembling the pistol. "I'm not an officer. Don't call me ma'am." "Sorry, Reese. What do you need?" Bryn hesitated in the doorway. I wanted to say thank you for the advice you gave me last week about the dive training. I used the breathing technique you showed me and it helped. Really helped." "Good." Silence. Bryn didn't leave. Reese glanced up. "Something else?" "There's a party Saturday night," Bryn said. "Off base, Carter Brennan's place. A bunch of people are going. I was wondering if you were." "No." "Oh, okay." Bryn shifted her weight. "I just thought, might be good to socialize a little. Let people see you're not just the hard-ass instructor, that there's more to you." Reese slid the magazine into the pistol, racked the slide, checked the chamber. Empty. Safe. "I am the hard-ass instructor," she said. "That's not an act." "I know, but—" Bryn. Reese set the pistol down, looked at the younger woman directly. "I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I'm not interested in socializing. I'm here to do a job, that's all. Everyone needs friends. I have everything I need." Bryn nodded slowly, disappointed but not surprised. "Okay," she said. "Well, if you change your mind, it starts at 8. Carter's house is the blue one off Alameda, 2 blocks from the main gate." She left, closing the door softly behind her. Reese sat alone again. The pistol gleamed on the towel, all its parts reassembled, ready for whatever came next. Outside her window, the sun was setting over the Pacific. Orange and red bleeding into purple, then darkness. The end of another day. She thought about the party, about Thorne and his crew, about the way conversations stopped when she entered a room lately, the way certain men looked at her with something harder than disappointment, something that felt like calculation. Her instincts, the ones Hargrave told her to trust, those instincts were screaming. Something was wrong. Something was coming. Reese stood, walked to her footlocker, opened it. Inside, beneath her dress uniform, was a photo. 8 years old now, the edges worn from handling, a younger version of herself. 20 years old, standing with 3 other female recruits during BUD/S training. All of them smiling, all of them believing they'd make it. Only Reese did. The others washed out. One medically, one voluntarily, and one— Reese closed the footlocker without looking at the rest of the photo. Some memories didn't need revisiting. Some wounds never fully healed, no matter how much time passed. She walked to the window, looked out at the darkening base, lights coming on in buildings, personnel moving between barracks, routine, order, the illusion of safety. But Reese Kavanaugh had learned the truth 8 years ago, the night that changed everything, the night she stopped trusting walls and locked doors and men who smiled too much. Safety was an illusion. The only real security came from within, from training, from readiness, from the absolute certainty that when violence came, and it always came eventually, you would be the one left standing. She touched the pocket where Hargrave's knife rested, felt its weight, its promise. Saturday night, Carter's house. A party where she wasn't wanted, but had been invited anyway. Every tactical sense she possessed said don't go, stay away, let them have their gathering without her. But Reese Kavanaugh hadn't survived this long by running from threats. She faced them, assessed them, and if necessary, she ended them. Saturday night, she decided she would go to the party. She would walk into whatever trap they'd prepared, and she would walk out again. Because that's what survivors did. They survived. Friday afternoon came with its own weight. The medical supply building sat at the edge of the base, unremarkable and largely ignored. Bryn Ashford had been assigned admin duty there for the week. Inventory, requisitions, data entry. Mind-numbing work, but it paid and it kept her clearance active. She was filing paperwork when she noticed someone at one of the computer terminals. Staff Sergeant Thorne logged into the pharmaceutical database. Not unusual. Personnel with appropriate clearance access the database regularly for legitimate reasons. Training scenarios, field medicine protocols, documentation for after-action reports. But something about the way he was looking at the screen made Bryn pause. Furtive, quick glances toward the door, tension in his shoulders. The posture of someone doing something they shouldn't. She moved closer, pretending to organize nearby files. On his screen, search results for sedatives, Rohypnol, dosage information, onset times, duration of effects, potential side effects, how to mask the taste. Bryn's stomach tightened. Thorne minimized the window, stood abruptly, saw her watching. "Hey," he said, smiling. That easy, charming smile. "Just doing some research for a training scenario. Combat medicine stuff. You know how it is." "Oh," Bryn said. "Okay. You heading to the party tomorrow?" "Yeah, probably." "Good. Should be fun. Bring friends." He walked past her, paused at the door. "See you there, Ashford." After he left, Bryn stood in the quiet room, staring at the computer terminal. The screen had gone dark. Sleep mode. Whatever he'd been looking at was gone. Something felt wrong. But what? Instructors research medical topics all the time. Sedatives were part of combat medicine curriculum. Field medics needed to know how these substances worked, how to identify them, how to treat someone who'd been exposed. She was probably overreacting, making connections that didn't exist, seeing shadows where there was only light. Bryn went back to her filing, but the unease stayed with her, a small voice in the back of her mind that she chose to ignore because the alternative, believing that someone she served with could be planning something dark, was too frightening to consider. So she ignored it. And that choice, that moment of dismissing her instincts, would haunt her later. Saturday, 6 p.m. Reese stood in front of her mirror, studying her reflection. Jeans, black t-shirt, boots. The same thing she wore off-duty every time. Functional, unremarkable. The uniform of someone who didn't want attention. She wasn't going to the party to impress anyone, wasn't going to socialize or bond or let her guard down. She was going because walking away felt like surrender. And Reese Kavanaugh didn't surrender. The knife Hargrave gave her was in her pocket. Her phone was charged. She'd told no one she was going, hadn't asked for backup or support. This wasn't a mission, just reconnaissance. Intelligence gathering. See what they were about, assess the threat level, and leave. Simple. At 7:30, she left her quarters, walked across the base to the parking lot, got into her truck. The drive to Carter's house took 12 minutes. Residential area, quiet streets, houses with small yards and chain-link fences. Normal suburbia hiding whatever secrets it held. The blue house was easy to spot. Cars lined both sides of the street. Music thumped from inside, bass rattling windows. Through the glass, she could see people. 30, maybe 40 personnel. Drinking, talking, laughing. Normal, harmless. But Reese had learned long ago that normal was a mask people wore. Underneath, everyone was capable of anything. She parked 3 blocks away, approached on foot, taking her time, letting her eyes adjust to the streetlights and shadows. Through the windows, she could see people. 30, maybe 40 personnel. Drinking, talking, laughing, normal, harmless. She reached the front door at 8:45. Inside, the noise was immediate. Music, conversations overlapping, someone shouting about a football game, the smell of beer and grilled meat, the familiar chaos of off-duty military personnel letting off steam. Reese stepped in, closed the door behind her. Heads turned. Conversations paused briefly, then resumed. The ripple effect of someone unexpected arriving. She moved through the crowd, not stopping, not engaging, just present, visible, making it clear she wasn't hiding, wasn't intimidated, wasn't playing their game. In the kitchen, Thorne was leaning against the counter. When he saw her, his expressions shifted. Surprise, then satisfaction, then something else. Something predatory that made Reese's instincts spike. "Kavanaugh," he said, pushing off the counter. "Didn't think you'd show." "Here for an hour," Reese said. "Then I'm leaving." "Fair enough. Want a drink?" He gestured to the counter where red plastic cups were lined up in neat rows. "Got beer, some mixed stuff, nothing fancy." Reese looked at the cups, all identical. No way to know which was which. No way to track chain of custody. "I'll get my own," she said, moving toward the cooler. But Thorne was already holding one out. "Already poured, save you the trouble." Their eyes met. His expression was friendly, open, trustworthy, the face of someone who meant well, who was just trying to be a good host. Every alarm in Reese's head was screaming, but refusing would show suspicion, would reveal that she didn't trust him, didn't feel safe here, would give him exactly what he wanted, confirmation that she thought herself above them, that she saw danger where others saw friendship. So she took the cup. "Thanks," she said. Thorne smiled. "No problem. Enjoy the party." He walked away, disappeared into the crowd. Reese looked down at the cup in her hand. Clear liquid, smelled like vodka and juice. Innocent, harmless, exactly what you'd expect at a party. She raised it to her lips. Didn't drink. Just let the liquid touch her mouth, wet her lips, then lowered it again. Not obvious, just careful. Just maintaining the illusion of participation while taking no actual risk. Around her, the party continued. People laughed, music played, everything normal. But in Reese Kavanaugh's world, nothing was ever normal. And tonight she knew with absolute certainty something was about to go very, very wrong. The trap was set. The predators were watching. And Reese walked deeper into their circle, knowing exactly what they wanted and knowing exactly what she would do when they tried to take it. 20 minutes into the party, Reese's vision blurred. Not much, just a fraction, like looking through glass smeared with fingerprints. She blinked, refocused, tried to clear it. The blur remained, spreading at the edges of her peripheral vision. She set the cup down on a table near the porch door, had barely touched it to her lips, but liquid absorbed through membranes, through skin contact, through the wet edge of plastic against mouth. Enough. Her internal assessment ran automatically. Heart rate elevated slightly. Pupils likely dilated though she couldn't see them. Depth perception compromised. Reaction time slowing. Fine motor control degrading. Rohypnol or something similar, fast acting. She had maybe 20 minutes before full effect, maybe less. Across the room, Thorne was watching, not obviously, just periodic glances, checking her position, her state, her vulnerability. Garrett stood near the back door, Cole by the stairs, Owen near the kitchen entrance. Positioned, waiting. Chess pieces on a board she'd walked on too willingly. Reese walked toward the porch, pushed through the door into cool night air. The sudden temperature change helped. Adrenaline spiked, burning through some of the drug's fog, sharpening her senses for precious seconds. She needed to leave. Now. Get to her truck, drive back to base, report this. Let the system handle it. Let someone else fight this battle. But her legs felt heavy. Not paralyzed, just weighted, like moving through water, like her muscles had forgotten how to work properly. She made it 3 steps off the porch before Thorne appeared beside her. Fast. Too fast. Like he'd been waiting for exactly this moment. "You okay?" he asked, concern in his voice. Perfect, practiced concern that would fool anyone watching. "Fine," Reese said. Her own voice sounded distant, disconnected from her body. "You look pale. Maybe you should sit down." "I'm leaving." "Let me help you to your car at least. Make sure you get there safe." His hand was on her elbow, gentle, supportive. The grip you'd use on someone unsteady, someone who needed assistance, someone who couldn't take care of themselves. Reese pulled away. "I'm fine." But she stumbled. Just a half step, just a momentary loss of balance. But Thorne saw it, and his expression shifted. Concern became certainty. The mask slipped for just a second. "Come on," he said, voice firmer now. "Let's get you inside. You can lie down for a minute, sleep it off." "No." "Reese." He moved in front of her, blocking her path to the street. "You're not okay. You need to sit down before you fall down, before you hurt yourself." Behind him, Garrett and Cole emerged from the house. Casual, just checking on a friend. Nothing suspicious to anyone watching from inside. "She all right?" Garrett asked. "Just had too much," Thorne said. "Gonna help her upstairs, let her sleep it off." "I didn't drink anything," Reese said. The words came out slurred, just slightly, just enough. Thorne smiled, sympathetic, understanding. "Come on, let's go." He took her arm again. This time when she tried to pull away, his grip tightened. Not painful, just firm. Just enough to guide her where he wanted. To make resistance futile without causing a scene. Back toward the house. Reese's tactical mind was still working, still processing through the chemical haze. 3 men. She could take 3 men in normal circumstances. Had done it in training. Had done it in combat. But these weren't normal circumstances. Her body was betraying her. Coordination failing. Strength ebbing. The drug working exactly as designed. She needed time. Needed the drug to cycle through, to metabolize, to lose its grip. 15 minutes, maybe 20. Not long in the grand scheme of things, but an eternity when predators were circling. So she stopped resisting. Let them think the drug had won. Let them guide her back inside, through the kitchen where the party continued oblivious, toward the stairs that led to the second floor. To whatever they had planned. Better to conserve energy. Better to let them think they'd won. Better to spring the trap from inside than to waste precious strength fighting the inevitable. "Easy," Thorne said, "one step at a time." The stairs felt like climbing a mountain. Each step required conscious thought. Lift foot, place foot, transfer weight, repeat. The simple mechanics of movement becoming complex, requiring focus that should have been automatic. Halfway up, Owen appeared at her other side. Took her left arm while Thorne held her right. 2 men supporting her weight, making sure she didn't fall, making sure she made it to wherever they were taking her. "I'm sorry," Owen whispered. So quiet she almost missed it. Reese turned her head, looked at him. Young face, guilty eyes, scared. The face of someone who knew what was about to happen and hated himself for participating, but lacked the courage to stop it. Weak point. File that information away. Might be useful later. They reached the second floor. Hallway with 4 doors. The one at the end stood open. Bedroom. Bare mattress. Single lamp. Window with closed blinds. Prepared. Staged. Waiting. Not improvised. This had been planned. Every detail considered. Every contingency prepared for. They walked her to the threshold. Thorne's hand was on her back now, between her shoulder blades, guiding her forward with gentle but insistent pressure. "Just lie down," he said. "Rest. You'll feel better in a bit." The room smelled like cheap detergent and old carpet. The mattress had a stain on one corner, dark and old. No sheets, no pillows, nothing soft or comfortable, not meant for sleeping. Reese stepped inside. Thorne followed. Then Garrett. Then Cole, phone already in his hand. Owen hesitated in the doorway, not wanting to cross that threshold, not wanting to be part of what came next, but not strong enough to walk away either. "Close it," Thorne said. Owen closed the door. The click of the latch was loud in the sudden quiet. Then the lock turned. That sound was even louder, more final. 4 men, 1 locked room, 1 woman who could barely stand. The math was simple, the outcome predetermined. Except they didn't know what Reese knew. Didn't understand what 8 years of preparation had built. Didn't realize that the drugged, stumbling woman in front of them was still the most dangerous thing in this room. They just hadn't figured it out yet. Thorne moved to the window, checked the blinds, closed tight. No one outside could see in. Complete privacy, complete control. Cole pulled out his phone, opened the camera, pointed it at Reese. The red recording light glowed in the dim room. "Insurance," he said, "so everyone knows what really happened here. So there's no he said, she said, later." Garrett stood near the dresser, arms crossed, watching, waiting for his turn. The patient predator who knew the prey was already caught. Owen stayed by the door, hands in pockets, eyes down, unable to watch but unable to leave. Reese cataloged it all. Positions, distances, angles of attack. The lamp on the nightstand, ceramic base, maybe 5 pounds. The dresser drawers, potential weapons inside. The door, locked but hinges on the inside. The window, escape route if necessary. All of it processed and filed while her body swayed slightly, while her eyes struggled to focus, while they thought they'd already won. "Sit down," Thorne said. Reese didn't move. "I said sit down." "No." Thorne's smile faded, frustration replacing the friendly mask, the pretense dropping away to reveal what had been underneath all along. "You don't get to say no anymore," he said. "Not here. Not now." That privilege ended when you walked through the door downstairs. He moved forward, put his hand on her shoulder, pushed. Reese let herself fall backward onto the mattress, let her body go limp, let them see what they expected to see, what they needed to see to feel safe, to feel in control, helpless, vulnerable, defeated. The mattress was old, springs digging into her back. Her vision swam. The ceiling fan above was motionless, blades thick with dust, a fixture that hadn't moved in years. Thorne leaned over her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, his breath, the beer he'd been drinking. Close enough to be a threat, close enough to be a target. "All those times you said no to me," he said quietly, "like I wasn't good enough, like none of us were good enough, like you were some kind of ice queen who didn't need anyone." His hand was on her collarbone now, fingers tracing down, testing, claiming. "Who's good enough now?" he asked. Reese didn't answer, didn't move, just watched him through half-closed eyes, letting him think she was barely conscious, barely aware of what was happening. Garrett moved closer. "Let me help." He grabbed her left wrist, pinned it to the mattress beside her head. His grip was professional, practiced, not the grip of someone doing this for the first time. He'd done this before. That realization cut through the drug fog like a blade. This wasn't their first time. This was routine for them, a pattern repeated. A system they'd perfected. How many others? How many other women who said no and paid this price? How many victims had there been before her? Cole moved to her right side, grabbed her other wrist, phone still in one hand, recording everything, documenting the assault for posterity or blackmail or whatever sick purpose he had in mind. "Get her legs," Thorne said to Owen. Owen didn't move, just stood there frozen, hands trembling. "Owen, now!" The younger man stepped forward slowly, bagged Reese's left ankle. His hands were shaking, sweating. He didn't look at her face, couldn't meet her eyes. Garrett took the right ankle. 4 points of contact, pinned, spread out on the mattress like a specimen on a table, like something to be studied, to be used, to be discarded. Thorne straightened up, looked down at her. savoring the moment, the power, the control, the reversal of every rejection, every humiliation, every time she'd made him feel small. "See," he said, "this is who you really are. Just another person who can be held down, can be controlled, can be taught a lesson." He reached for her shirt collar. Reese's heart rate spiked. Not fear, fury. Cold, controlled fury that burned away the last of the drug's effect, like sunrise burning away fog. Her breathing changed, deeper, steadier, oxygenating muscles, preparing for what came next. Thorne grabbed the collar of her shirt, started to pull. Fabric tore. The sound was loud in the quiet room, satisfying to him. The first step in whatever he had planned. Cole's phone camera focused in closer, getting the shot, the evidence, the trophy, the thing he could use later to control her, or to relive this moment, or to show others what happened when someone rejected them. "Yeah," Cole said. "That's it. This is good. Keep going." Garrett's grip on her wrist tightened. Owen's hands on her ankles started to sweat. She could feel his pulse through his fingers. Racing, terrified. The reluctant participant who'd gone too far to back out now. Weak point confirmed. Thorne leaned down again, his face inches from hers, close enough to see the satisfaction in his eyes, the belief that he'd won, that justice, in his twisted worldview, was being served. "Scream louder," he whispered. "Nobody's coming. Nobody cares. You're alone. Finally, completely alone." Those words, those exact words, 8 years ago, different room, different men, same words, same situation. Same moment of realization that help wasn't coming and survival depended entirely on herself. Something inside Reese broke. Not her spirit, not her will. The last chain holding back 8 years of rage, 8 years of preparation, 8 years of waiting for this exact moment. Her eyes opened fully, clear, focused. The drug was still in her system, but adrenaline was stronger. Training was stronger. The absolute refusal to be a victim again was stronger than any chemical compound ever created. Thorne saw the change, saw something shift behind her eyes, saw the predator realize it had trapped the wrong prey. His expression flickered, uncertainty replacing certainty. Too late. Reese's right leg, the one Garrett held, exploded upward. Not a wild kick, not desperation. A precise chamber, knee to chest, then extension, full power, full commitment. Her boot heel drove into Owen's groin with every ounce of force she could generate. The impact was devastating. Physics and anatomy combining in the worst possible way for Owen. Owen's scream was high and broken, the sound of something fundamental breaking. His hands released her ankle immediately. He collapsed sideways, hit the floor, curled into a ball. Out of the fight, neutralized. One down. Garrett's head turned toward Owen. Distraction. Fatal mistake. The oldest trick in combat. Never take your eyes off your opponent. Reese twisted her hips, used the mattress springs for leverage, pivoted her body. Her left leg came free. She coiled it, building tension, then snapped it out. Heel strike to Garrett's solar plexus. Center mass. Maximum damage. Air exploded from his lungs. His grip on her wrist loosened. He stumbled backward, gasping, unable to breathe, unable to function. 2 down. Cole was still holding her right wrist, but the phone was occupying his other hand. He couldn't control her effectively with one hand. Couldn't maintain grip and hold the camera steady. Reese sat up fast, using core strength and momentum, headbutted him. Not a wild swing, targeted, forehead to bridge of nose, bone against cartilage. No contest. Cartilage crunched, blood sprayed. Cole released her wrist, stumbled backward, hands going to his face. Phone clattered to the floor, screen cracking on impact. 3 down. Thorne was backing up, eyes wide, processing what just happened, how it happened, how the helpless woman on the bed had become a threat in less than 5 seconds. Outside the window, hidden in darkness, Master Chief Declan Hargrave lowered his phone. The recording was clear, the evidence complete. He'd been 10 seconds from breaking down that door, 10 seconds from intervening. But Reese didn't need saving. She never had. Reese was on her feet now, swaying slightly, still fighting the drug, but upright, mobile, dangerous. The hunter instead of the hunted. Thorne reached for something on his belt. Knife, small folding blade, last resort of a man who'd lost control of the situation. He flicked it open with a practiced motion. "Stay back," he said, voice shaking now, fear replacing confidence. Predator becoming prey. Reese didn't stay back. She moved forward, not rushing, not losing control. Closing distance with deliberate precision. Thorne slashed, wild arc, defensive, desperate, the attack of someone who'd never really had to fight for their life before. Reese swayed left. The blade passed inches from her face. She continued forward, caught his wrist on the backswing, applied pressure. Wrist lock. Textbook execution. Control the weapon, control the fight. The knife fell, clattered on the floor, harmless now. She drove her palm into his chin, snapping his head back. His teeth clacked together, blood on his lips where he bit his tongue, the copper taste of defeat. He stumbled backward into the dresser, tried to push off, come back at her, still thinking he could win this, still not understanding how badly he'd miscalculated. Reese grabbed the lamp from the nightstand. Ceramic base, heavy, solid. She swung it in a short arc. Efficient, economic, no wasted motion, connected with the side of Thorne's head. The lamp shattered, ceramic fragments scattering. Thorne dropped, not unconscious, dazed, blood running from his temple, mixing with the sweat in fear. Behind her, Garrett was trying to stand, still wheezing, ribs probably cracked from her kick, moving slow, vulnerable. Reese turned, stepped over Owen, who was still curled on the floor, still whimpering, moved toward Garrett with purpose. He saw her coming, tried to raise his hands, defend himself, but his breathing was wrong, his balance was off. He was operating at 20% capacity, too slow. She grabbed the front of his shirt, slammed his head backward into the doorframe. Once, the sound of skull meeting wood. Twice, harder. Third time his eyes rolled up. He slid down the wall, unconscious, a rag doll in tactical clothing. Cole was on his knees, blood pouring from his broken nose, trying to crawl toward the phone, trying to recover the evidence, trying to salvage something from this disaster. Reese walked over, stomped on the phone. Screen splintered under her boot. She stomped again. Plastic cracked. Again. Components scattered across the floor like confetti. No evidence, no recording, no trophy, nothing to use against her later. Cole looked up at her, terror in his eyes. The kind of fear that comes from realizing you've made a fundamental miscalculation about the world and your place in it. "Please," he said, "please don't." Reese grabbed him by the collar, lifted him partially off the ground, drove her knee into his ribs, felt one crack, then another, the sound of consequences arriving. He went down, stayed down, curled up like Owen, whimpering, broken. The room was quiet now except for breathing. Theirs, ragged, desperate, damaged. Hers, controlled, steady, victorious. 30 seconds, maybe less. 4 men down. 4 threats neutralized. 4 predators who'd learned that some prey fought back. Reese stood in the center of the room, shirt torn, knuckles bleeding, hair wild. The drug was still in her system. She could feel it. But it didn't matter anymore. She'd won. Not because she was stronger, not because she was lucky, because she'd trained for this. Because 8 years ago she'd sworn it would never happen again. And because when it mattered, when violence was the only answer, She was better at violence than they could ever imagine. Thorne was trying to sit up, blood on his face, eyes unfocused. Concussion, probably. Maybe worse. Reese walked over, knelt beside him, made sure he could see her clearly, made sure he understood. "Say it again," she said quietly. He looked at her, confused, in shock, brain trying to process what had just happened. "Say what you said before," Reese said, "about nobody coming." Thorne's mouth moved. No sound came out, just breath and blood. Reese grabbed his jaw, forced him to look at her, to really see her, to understand the mistake he'd made. "Say it." "Nobody's coming," he whispered. "That's right," Reese said. "Nobody came. Nobody saved me. I saved myself. Remember that. Every day in prison, remember that you chose this. You chose to be predators. And predators sometimes meet something higher on the food chain." She released him, stood, walked to the door, turned the lock, pulled it open. The door handle had broken when Garrett hit the frame. Splintered wood, bent metal. It wouldn't close properly now. Didn't matter. She was done here. Reese stepped into the hallway. Cool air from a window somewhere. Voices from downstairs. Music still playing. The party continuing. Oblivious to what had happened one floor above. She walked toward the stairs, each step more stable than the last. Adrenaline burning away the drug, clarity returning, control reestablishing itself. At the top of the stairs, she paused, looked back down the hallway, at the broken door, at the room where 4 men lay in various states of consciousness, at the scene of their defeat. Then she started down, one step at a time, hand on the railing for balance, shirt torn at the collar, blood on her knuckles, boots still on but unlaced. Halfway down, someone looked up, a corporal, young, drunk. His expression changed as he processed what he was seeing. Shock, confusion, the disconnect between expectation and reality. "You okay?" he asked. Reese stopped, looked at him, let him see her face, let him see the truth in her eyes. "They're not," she said, continued down the stairs. More people noticing now, conversations stopping, heads turning, eyes widening, the ripple effect spreading through the party as people realized something had happened. She walked through the kitchen, through the living room, toward the front door, moving with purpose, not running, not hiding, just leaving. Someone grabbed her arm. "Hey, what happened? Do you need—" Reese pulled free without breaking stride, kept walking. No explanations necessary, no justifications required. Outside, the night air was cold, sobering. She stood on the porch for a moment, breathing deeply, letting the adrenaline cycle down, letting her body begin the process of recovery. Her truck was 3 blocks away. Long walk. But she'd made longer walks in worse condition. She stepped off the porch. A voice from her left. "Kavanaugh." Reese turned. Master Chief Declan Hargrave stood beside his truck, parked across the street. He'd been there the whole time, watching, waiting, recording, ready to intervene if necessary, but trusting her to handle it herself. He walked toward her, stopped a few feet away, looked at her torn shirt, her bleeding knuckles, her steady gaze. "You handled it?" he asked. "Yes, Master Chief." He nodded, pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. Video footage, shot through the bedroom window. Not clear, but clear enough. 4 men surrounding her. The fight. All of it documented. "I've got the rest," he said. "Go home, shower, report to base at 0600. I'll handle chain of command." Reese stared at the phone. "You were recording?" "The whole time." Hargrave's expression was hard, proud but hard. "I knew something was wrong. Followed you here. Saw them take you upstairs. I was 10 seconds from coming through that door when you handled it yourself." "Why didn't you stop them before?" "Because you needed to do it yourself. Needed to know you could." He put the phone away. "And now you do. Now you know for certain that when it matters, you're enough. You've always been enough. Behind them, voices from inside the house. Someone had found the room, found the men. Panic spreading as people realized the party was over and something serious had happened. Go, Hargrave said. I've got this. Reese hesitated, then nodded, started walking toward her truck. Kavanaugh, Hargrave called. She stopped, looked back. I'm proud of you, he said. Claire would have been too. Reese didn't trust herself to respond, just nodded, kept walking, one foot in front of the other. 3 blocks of quiet suburban streets, houses with their lights on, normal lives continuing behind those walls. 3 blocks felt like 3 miles. Every step was an effort. The adrenaline was fading now, exhaustion replacing it. The drugs still in her system making her limbs heavy, her thoughts slow. But she made it, got to her truck, sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, just breathing, just existing in the space between crisis and recovery. Her hands were shaking, not fear, not shock, just the aftermath, the body processing trauma, the nervous system recalibrating after emergency protocols. She started the engine, drove slowly, carefully, back toward base, hands at 10 and 2, eyes on the road, following every traffic law. No reason to attract attention now. Behind her, Carter's house erupted into chaos. Sirens in the distance. Someone had called for medics. Someone had called the police. The machinery of justice beginning to turn. But Reese didn't look back. She drove through quiet streets, through the gate onto base, showed her ID, drove to her barracks, parked in her assigned spot. Inside her quarters, she locked the door, stripped off her torn shirt, looked at herself in the mirror. Bruises forming on her wrists where they grabbed her, scrapes on her knuckles, blood under her fingernails. Evidence of what had happened. Proof that this was real. She showered. Hot water as hot as she could stand, washing away blood and sweat and the feel of their hands on her. Washing away the evidence, but not the memory. Memory stayed. Memory always stayed. After she dressed in clean clothes, sat on her bed, looked at the clock, 11:47 p.m. In 13 minutes it would be Sunday. New day, new beginning, or maybe just continuation of the same fight, different battle, same war. Her phone buzzed. Text from Hargrave. NCIS en route. Base lockdown. You're clear. Get some sleep. Reese set the phone aside, lay back on her bed, stared at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Not tonight. Probably not tomorrow night either. But that was okay. She'd survived. Not just survived, she'd won. 4 men thought they could break her. Thought they could take what she wouldn't give. Thought that drugs and numbers and locked doors were enough. They were wrong. And now they knew it. Now everyone would know it. Reese Kavanaugh wasn't untouchable because she thought herself better. She was untouchable because she'd made herself a weapon. Sharp, precise, unforgiving. And weapons didn't negotiate, didn't compromise, didn't surrender. They cut. And tonight, she'd cut deep. Outside her window, the base was waking up. Lights coming on, vehicles moving, the machinery of justice beginning to turn. But inside her quarters, Reese sat in darkness, alone, unbroken, waiting for morning, waiting for what came next. Because she knew with absolute certainty that this wasn't over. The fight in that room was just the beginning. The real battle, the one that would determine whether justice was served or buried, whether the system protected predators or punished them, that battle was still to come. And Reese Kavanaugh would fight that battle the same way she'd fought in the bedroom, with everything she had, until she won. Or until there was nothing left to fight with. Morning came cold and gray. Fog rolled in from the Pacific, thick enough to blur the edges of buildings, to turn the base into something ghostly and uncertain. Reese stood outside the NCIS field office at 05:45, 15 minutes early. Her uniform was crisp, boots polished to mirror finish, hair pulled back regulation tight. No visible evidence of last night except a small bruise on her left wrist, mostly hidden by her sleeve. The door opened. A woman in civilian clothes, early 40s, short, dark hair, eyes that missed nothing and forgot less. Petty Officer Kavanaugh? Yes, ma'am. Special Agent Diana Wolf, come in. The office was temporary, set up in what used to be a storage building. Folding tables, laptop computers, file boxes stacked against walls. The organized chaos of an active investigation in its early hours. Two other agents were present, both men, both watching Reese with professional assessment, trying to reconcile the composed woman in front of them with what they'd seen in the video footage. Sit, Wolf said, gesturing to a chair. Reese sat, hands folded in her lap, posture perfect, face neutral, the mask she'd perfected over 8 years of service. Wolf pulled up a chair across from her, close, intentionally invading personal space. Testing, seeing if Reese would flinch or retreat. She didn't. Long night? Wolf asked. Yes, ma'am. Want to tell me about it? I'd prefer to wait for my union representative. Wolf smiled faintly. You're not under investigation, petty officer. You're the victim here. Though from what I understand, the 4 men in the hospital might dispute that characterization. They drugged me, Reese said. Took me to a locked room. Attempted sexual assault. I defended myself. That's not disputable. That's documented. With considerable effectiveness, I was trained well. Wolf leaned back, pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen with practiced efficiency, turned it toward Reese. Video footage, grainy, shot through a window, but clear enough. The bedroom. 4 men surrounding her on the bed. Then the fight. 30 seconds of controlled violence that looked choreographed in its precision. Master Chief Hargrave provided this, Wolf said, along with his statement. He was outside the house, saw them take you upstairs, started recording. He says he was prepared to intervene, but you handled the situation before intervention became necessary. Reese watched the video without expression, seeing herself from outside, the way her body moved, efficient, brutal, effective, the product of thousands of hours of training. The hospital reports are interesting, Wolf continued. Owen Dalton, ruptured testicle, will require surgery. Garrett Finch, concussion, 3 cracked ribs. Cole Vickers, broken nose, 2 fractured ribs, possible orbital fracture. Marcus Thorne, skull fracture, 7 stitches, possible traumatic brain injury, pending MRI results. She paused, let the details hang in the air, let Reese process the damage she'd inflicted. You did that in 30 seconds, Wolf said, to 4 men, while drugged, while impaired, while your fine motor control was compromised. Yes, ma'am. How? Reese met her eyes. 8 years of training, and 8 years of knowing exactly what I'd do if anyone tried again. Again? Silence. Reese didn't elaborate. Some stories stayed private until they became necessary evidence. Wolf tapped her tablet. Your record shows an incident during BUD/S training. 8 years ago, an instructor was discharged after you filed a complaint. Details are sealed. Yes, ma'am. Was that incident similar to last night? It didn't get as far as last night. I stopped it earlier. By breaking his jaw, by defending myself, by making it clear that assault would not be tolerated, by ensuring he faced consequences. Wolf nodded slowly, set the tablet aside, leaned forward again. Here's where we are, she said. Toxicology confirms rohypnol in your system. Not a large dose, but enough to cause significant impairment. We found the source, a vial hidden in Marcus Thorne's locker, his fingerprints all over it. His procurement records show he accessed the medical database Friday afternoon, researched sedatives, dosages, effects. So it was premeditated, Reese said. Extensively. We also found a second camera, hidden GoPro with cloud backup. Thorne had positioned it in the bedroom beforehand. The footage shows everything, including them spiking your drink, discussing their plan, carrying you upstairs, the assault attempt, everything. Wolf pulled out a folder, opened it. Photos, screenshots from the GoPro footage. Damning evidence of premeditation and intent. This is clear evidence of conspiracy to commit sexual assault, Wolf said. Drugging, false imprisonment, attempted rape. All of them are facing serious charges, very serious charges. Good. But there's a complication. Reese waited. There was always a complication. Owen Dalton is cooperating. Full confession. He claims he tried to stop it, whispered an apology to you on the stairs, says he was pressured by Thorne and the others, that he didn't want to participate but felt he had no choice. He still participated, Reese said. He grabbed my ankle, held me down. Whatever his internal conflict, his actions were clear. I know, and he'll face charges, but lighter ones in exchange for testimony. Wolf paused. His testimony is crucial because it reveals something bigger, something that goes beyond this one night. She pulled out another file, thicker, older, the kind of file that suggested a pattern. 3 years ago, Marcus Thorne was stationed at Naval Base Ventura County. A female lieutenant filed a harassment complaint against him. The complaint was investigated by the base commander at the time, Captain Richard Morrow. Wolf opened the file. A photograph, a woman in uniform, blonde, early 30s, confident smile that suggested she hadn't yet learned what the system could do to people who spoke up. The investigation concluded there was insufficient evidence, Wolf continued. The lieutenant was transferred. The complaint was buried. Case closed. Everyone moved on. She looked up at Reese. Except it wasn't closed, and they didn't move on. What happened? Lieutenant Kira Westmont left the Navy 2 years ago. We contacted her yesterday. She's agreed to testify. Testify to what? That Marcus Thorne, along with Garrett Finch, drugged and assaulted her at an off-base party in 2019. That she reported it immediately. That Captain Morrow dismissed her complaint, suggested she was confused about what happened, implied that pursuing charges would damage her career more than theirs. That he gave her a choice, transfer and move on, or destroy her career fighting a battle she couldn't win. Wolf pulled out more documents. Morrow was base commander at Ventura County from 2018 to 2020, then transferred to Norfolk. Thorne and Finch followed standard rotation, ended up here at Coronado 6 months before you arrived, bringing their pattern with them. Reese's hands tightened in her lap. He buried it. He protected them. And because of that protection, they did it again. To me. Yes, and possibly to others we haven't found yet. The room was quiet. One of the male agents shifted his weight. The fluorescent lights hummed their steady drone. Captain Morrow is still serving, Wolf said, currently stationed in Norfolk. When this comes out, there will be an investigation into his conduct, into how many other complaints he buried, into whether this pattern of protection extends beyond him, into whether the system itself enabled this. You're saying this is bigger than 4 men. I'm saying this is systemic, and your case is going to blow it wide open. You're not just a victim who fought back. You're evidence of institutional failure. You're proof that the system protects predators when good people stay silent. Wolf closed the files, looked at Reese directly. You need to understand what's coming, she said. Court-martial proceedings, testimony under oath, media attention, public scrutiny. This won't be quiet. This won't go away. 4 active duty SEALs charged with attempted rape. Evidence of a cover-up 3 years ago. Implications of broader institutional failure. This is going to get loud, very loud. I understand. Do you? Wolf leaned forward. Because part of me admires what you did. You fought back. You survived. You made sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. But another part of me, the part that's been doing this job for 15 years, knows that survivors don't always get justice. Sometimes the system protects the wrong people. Sometimes the victim becomes the problem because she's inconvenient, because she's proof of failure, because she won't stay quiet. I'm not a problem, Reese said quietly. I'm evidence. Wolf smiled. Genuine this time. Yes, you are. And that's exactly the right answer. She stood, extended her hand. Reese stood, shook it. Firm grip, equal pressure. We'll be in touch, Wolf said. In the meantime, you're on administrative leave pending the investigation. Not punitive, protective. There are going to be a lot of people with opinions about what happened. Some of those people won't like that you fought back, won't like that you survived, won't like what your survival says about the system. Stay on base, stay visible. And petty officer? Yes, ma'am? Watch your six. The men who did this have friends, and not all of them are in the hospital. Reese left the office, stepped out into fog and cold morning air. The sun was trying to break through but hadn't succeeded yet. Master Chief Hargrave was waiting, leaning against his truck, coffee in hand, looking like he'd been there all night. Maybe he had. How'd it go? He asked. They're prosecuting, all four of them. Good. He handed her a second coffee. Figured you could use this. Reese took it. The warmth felt good against her palms. The smell of coffee cutting through the fog and exhaustion. There's something else, Hargrave said. Bryn Ashford came to see me this morning. She saw Thorne accessing the medical database Friday, researching sedatives. She thought it was for training, didn't report it. She's taking it hard. She's 19 years old, Reese said. She didn't know, couldn't have known. They would have explained it away as legitimate research. She knows now. Thinks if she'd said something, this wouldn't have happened. Carrying guilt that isn't hers to carry. Reese sipped the coffee. Bitter, strong, exactly what she needed. It still would have happened, just a different night, different method. Men like Thorne don't stop because someone notices. They adapt. They evolve. They find new ways to hurt people. Maybe, but she wants to talk to you. When you're ready. Reese nodded. I'll find her. They stood in silence for a moment. Around them, the base was waking up. Personnel heading to morning formation. Vehicles moving between buildings. Routine continuing despite the chaos underneath. You know what happens next? Hargrave asked. Court-martial. Testimony. Media circus. And after that? I keep serving. I keep training. I keep doing my job. They might not let you. Might decide you're a liability. Too much attention. Too controversial. Too much proof that the system failed. Reese looked at him. Then I fight that too, because that's what I do. I fight. I survive. I refuse to let them win. Hargrave smiled, sad but proud. Yeah, he said, I expect you will. The next 72 hours moved fast. Time compressed when investigations kicked into high gear. NCIS completed their work with methodical precision. Seized computers, phones, personal effects, interviewed witnesses, built their case brick by brick until the structure was unassailable. Marcus Thorne, Garrett Finch, and Cole Vickers were formally charged with conspiracy to commit sexual assault, drugging with intent to facilitate assault, false imprisonment, and attempted rape. Owen Dalton was charged with conspiracy and false imprisonment, lesser charges in exchange for his cooperation and testimony. The story broke on Tuesday, not through official channels, through leaks, through whispers that became rumors that became certainties, through the inevitable erosion of operational security when something this explosive happened. By Wednesday, civilian media had it. By Thursday, it was national news. Female Navy SEAL fights off 4 attackers. Sexual assault cover-up revealed in military. NCIS investigates systemic protection of predators. The headlines multiplied. The base locked down media access, but that only made the story bigger, more mysterious, more compelling. The forbidden always attracted more attention than the accessible. Reese stayed in her quarters most of the week, emerging only for necessary appointments, for meetings with the NCIS investigators, for brief walks to maintain physical fitness and mental sanity. People stared, some with admiration, some with suspicion, some with outright hostility. The woman who'd broken the code of silence. The woman who'd refused to be a quiet victim. The woman whose survival was proof of institutional failure. She ignored all of it, had practice ignoring opinions that didn't matter. On Friday afternoon, there was a knock at her door. "Come in." Bryn Ashford entered, eyes red from crying or lack of sleep, or both. 19 years old and carrying guilt that aged her. "I'm sorry," she said immediately, words tumbling out. "I'm so sorry. I saw him looking at that stuff and I didn't. I should have. I'm so—" "Stop," Reese said. "Sit down." Bryn sat, hands clasped tight in her lap, knuckles white. "I could have prevented this. If I just said something—" "You didn't do anything wrong," Reese interrupted. "I saw him. I could have reported it. And he would have said it was for training, which is plausible, which means nothing would have changed except he would have known someone was watching. He would have been more careful, that's all." But nothing," Reese's voice was firm. "You're not responsible for what he did. He is. They are. Not you. Never you. You don't get to carry their guilt. That's theirs alone." Bryn looked up, tears on her face, young and scared and trying so hard to be strong. "I looked up to you," she said. "I thought if I could be like you, strong like you, focused like you, nothing bad would happen. And then it did anyway." "Being strong doesn't prevent bad things," Reese said. "It just means you survive them. It means when bad things happen, you have options. You have training. You have the ability to fight back. But it doesn't make you immune. Nobody's immune." "Is that enough? Just surviving?" Reese was quiet for a long moment, thinking about 8 years, about every day since, about the cost of survival, about the price of refusing to be broken. "Some days," she said finally, "some days it has to be." Bryn wiped her eyes. "What happens now? To you?" "I testify. They get convicted. Life continues. The system works or it doesn't. Either way, I keep moving forward." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Bryn stood, hesitated at the door. "Can I ask you something?" "Yes." "When you were in that room, when it was happening, were you scared?" Reese considered lying, considered giving the answer that would make her seem invincible, untouchable, the answer that would maintain the myth. But this kid deserved truth. "Terrified," she said, "every second. From the moment I felt the drug take effect to the moment I walked out of that house. Absolutely terrified." "But you fought anyway." "Because being scared doesn't mean being helpless. It just means you're human. Fear is information. It tells you when you're in danger. What you do with that information, that's what matters. Some people freeze. Some people submit. Some people fight. I chose to fight." Bryn nodded, understanding something fundamental about the nature of courage. "Thank you," she said. After she left, Reese sat alone again. The sun was setting outside her window, orange light bleeding into purple. Another day ending. Her phone buzzed. Text from Special Agent Wolf. "Kira Westmont arrives tomorrow. Wants to meet you. You up for it?" Reese typed back, "Yes." The meeting was arranged for Saturday morning, neutral location, a conference room in the NCIS office. Official space for an unofficial conversation. Kira Westmont walked in at 0900 exactly. 31 years old now, civilian clothes, short hair, confident posture. But her eyes held something Reese recognized immediately. Damage. The kind that never fully healed. The kind that changed how you saw the world forever. "Petty Officer Kavanaugh," Kira said. "Just Reese." They shook hands, sat across from each other. Special Agent Wolf sat at the head of the table, present but silent. Witness to whatever needed witnessing. "Thank you for meeting me," Kira said. "Of course. I wanted to tell you, before the trial, before all this gets bigger, Kira paused, choosing words carefully. What happened to you, what you did, that should have been me 3 years ago. I should have fought. I should have refused to let them win. But I didn't. I let them convince me I was wrong, that I'd misunderstood, that pursuing it would destroy me. You reported it, Reese said. You tried. That took courage. And I let Captain Morrow bury it. Let Thorne and Finch walk away. Let them believe they were untouchable. Kira's voice tightened. And because I did, because I stayed silent after the initial report, they did it again. To you. Your assault is on me. Your trauma is because I wasn't strong enough. That's not true. Reese leaned forward. Your assault is on them. My assault is on them. Not on you. Never on you. You survived the only way you could. That's not weakness. That's survival. And survival is enough. Is it? It has to be, because the alternative is letting them win retroactively, is letting them destroy not just who we were in those moments, but who we are now. And I refuse to let them have that power. Kira looked at her, really looked. Seeing someone who understood in a way most people couldn't. Seeing someone who'd walked the same dark path and emerged on the other side. How did you do it? Kira asked. How did you fight them off? 4 men, drugs in your system, locked room. How? Training, anger, refusal to be a victim again, and luck. I got lucky that the drug didn't work as well as they planned. Lucky that I trained for exactly this scenario. Lucky that Master Chief Hargrave followed his instincts and was there with evidence. Again, Reese told her, about 8 years ago. About the instructor. About the moment that changed everything. About the decision she made that night that would define the next 8 years of her life. When she finished, Kira was crying. Quiet tears. Tears for herself. For Reese. For every woman who'd faced this and survived it or hadn't. For all the victims who never got justice or even acknowledgement. I'm testifying, Kira said, at the court-martial. I'm going to tell them everything. What they did, what Morrow did, what the system did. All of it, every detail. It won't be easy. They'll try to discredit you. They'll suggest you're lying for attention or revenge. They'll question every detail of your story. I know, but you fought 4 men while drugged and won. I can sit in a chair and tell the truth. That's nothing compared to what you survived. They talked for another hour, sharing stories, building connection. 2 survivors across 3 years and 1 common enemy, creating the foundation of something that might, eventually, become healing. When Kira left, she hugged Reese. Brief, fierce, the embrace of soldiers who'd fought the same war. Thank you, she said, for doing what I couldn't, for being strong when I was weak, for making sure they faced consequences. You did what you could, Reese said. That's all anyone can do, and you're doing it now. That's what matters. The court-martial proceedings began 3 weeks later. Military courtroom, formal, severe. Flag at the front, judge at the bench. Prosecution on one side, defense on the other. The machinery of military justice grinding into motion. The 4 defendants sat in a row, orange jumpsuits, shackled. Thorne in the middle, Garrett to his right, Cole to his left. Owen at the end, looking smaller than the others, younger, more afraid. The gallery was full. Media, military personnel, observers from advocacy groups, every seat taken, standing room only, the kind of audience that suggested history being made. Reese sat in the front row, dress uniform, ribbons on her chest, face neutral. She'd been instructed not to react, not to show emotion, to be professional at all times, to be the perfect victim who was also the perfect sailor. She could do that. Had been doing it for 8 years. The prosecution opened strong, played the GoPro footage, crystal clear, audio and video, the planning, the execution, the assault attempt, the entire conspiracy laid bare for the court to witness. The courtroom went silent watching it. Even the defense attorneys looked uncomfortable. Even Thorne's own lawyers seemed disturbed by what their clients had done. Then came testimony. NCIS agents walking through the evidence, medical experts explaining the effects of Rohypnol, toxicologists confirming the drug in Reese's system, each witness adding another brick to the wall of certainty. On day 3, Owen Dalton testified. He walked to the stand slowly, wouldn't look at the other defendants, wouldn't look at Reese, eyes down, shoulders hunched, the posture of shame. The prosecutor, a Navy JAG officer named Commander Sarah Chen, led him through it step by step, building the narrative with patient precision. "Tell us how this plan began," Chen said. Owen's voice was quiet. Marcus was angry. About Reese, about her rejecting him. He said she needed to learn she wasn't untouchable, that someone needed to teach her a lesson about respect. What did that mean? At first I thought he just meant, like, embarrass her, make her uncomfortable, play a prank or something harmless. But then he started talking about the party, about getting her alone, about making sure she couldn't say no. Did he mention drugging her? Yes. He said he had access to something that would make her compliant. That's the word he used, compliant, like she was a problem that needed solving. "And you agreed to participate?" Owen's face crumpled, years of guilt breaking through in one moment. "I didn't want to." "But Marcus, he was my squad leader. And Garrett and Cole, they were all in. And I thought if I said no, they'd think I was weak. Or they'd do it anyway, and I'd be the one who abandoned them. I thought I could protect her somehow by being there. I was wrong. I was so wrong." "So you participated?" "Yes." "Did you have opportunities to stop it, to report it?" "Yes, multiple opportunities. I could have told Master Chief Hargrave. I could have warned Reese. I could have called the police when I saw Marcus with the drugs. I had a dozen chances to do the right thing." "Why didn't you?" "Because I'm a coward." The courtroom was silent. That kind of silence that comes when truth is spoken so plainly that nobody knows how to respond. Chen let the answer hang there, then continued. "When you were in the room, what happened?" Owen described it. The drugging, the walk upstairs, the locked room, Reese on the bed. The plan to assault her while filming, every detail damning. "I grabbed her ankle," he said. "I was told to hold her legs. I did. And while I was doing it, I whispered, 'I'm sorry.' Like that meant anything. Like apologizing while participating made it better. Like I could claim moral high ground while committing a crime." "What happened next?" "She kicked me. I've never felt pain like that. I went down, couldn't breathe, couldn't see, just pain. And I heard the others, heard them fighting, heard them getting hurt. And I just lay there, useless, unable to help and unwilling to try." "Why are you testifying today?" Owen finally looked up, at Reese, meeting her eyes for the first time since that night. "Because she deserves justice. Because the other women they did this to deserve justice. And because if I can't take back what I did, at least I can make sure they don't get away with it. At least I can tell the truth. That's the least I can do." The defense tried to break him on cross-examination, suggested he was lying to get a lighter sentence, suggested the whole thing was consensual until Reese changed her mind, suggested Reese had led them on and then regretted it. But the video evidence made those suggestions impossible. The timeline was clear. The drug was real. The assault attempt was documented. The premeditation was undeniable. Owen's testimony stood, unshaken, unbreakable. On day 5, Kira Westmont testified. She walked to the stand with her head high, wore a business suit, looked professional, composed. Every inch the successful civilian she'd become after leaving the military. But when she started speaking, her voice shook. Just slightly, just enough to reveal the cost of being here. 3 years ago, I was a lieutenant stationed at Ventura County. I attended an off-base party. Marcus Thorne and Garrett Finch approached me multiple times during the evening. I declined their advances. All of them. Politely, but firmly. Commander Chen guided her through it. The gaps in memory. Waking up in a room she didn't recognize. Thorne and Finch there. Her clothes disheveled. Evidence of assault. The nightmare of realization. I reported it immediately, Kira said. Went to my commanding officer, then to the base commander, Captain Richard Morrow. He interviewed me, interviewed them, collected statements, reviewed evidence. Then he called me into his office and told me there was insufficient evidence, that it would be my word against theirs, that pursuing charges would damage my career and my reputation, that the best thing I could do, the smart thing, was transfer and move on. What did you do? I believed him. I trusted the system. I thought he was trying to protect me from further trauma. So I transferred. I tried to move on. And 2 years later, I left the Navy entirely because I couldn't stand being in the same organization that chose to protect my rapists instead of me. The defense objected. Alleged rapists. There were no charges filed. The investigation found insufficient evidence. The judge sustained the objection. But the point was made. The pattern was visible. On cross-examination, the defense attorney, a civilian lawyer named Martin Cross, tried to discredit her, used every tool in the playbook. You admit you were drinking that night? Yes. Heavily? I had 2 beers over 3 hours, nowhere near intoxication. But you don't remember everything that happened. Because I was drugged. Because someone put something in my drink without my knowledge or consent. You assume you were drugged, but you have no proof. The gaps in my memory, the physical evidence, the fact that my blood alcohol level the next day was far higher than 2 beers would produce. That's proof. That's evidence. That's reality. Or you drank more than you remember. Or you made choices you regretted later and decided to call it assault. Kira's voice hardened, steel replacing the initial shake. I know what happened to me, and I know Captain Morrow chose to ignore it. And because he did, because he protected them, those men did it again, to Petty Officer Kavanaugh. So you can try to discredit me all you want. You can suggest I'm lying or confused or vindictive, but the pattern speaks for itself, and patterns don't lie. Cross tried a few more angles. None of them landed. Kira had waited 3 years for this. She wasn't going to be shaken now. Not by innuendo, not by victim blaming, not by anything. When she stepped down, she looked at Reese. A small nod. Solidarity between survivors. Recognition between warriors. Reese nodded back, understanding passing between them without words. On day 7, Reese testified. She'd prepared for this, rehearsed with the prosecution, knew what questions were coming, had practiced maintaining composure under hostile cross-examination. But sitting in the witness chair, facing the courtroom, seeing Thorne and the others watching her with varying degrees of hatred and fear, it took everything she had to keep her voice steady. Commander Chen started gentle. Background, training, service record, building the foundation before getting to the assault itself. Then, tell us about the night of the assault. Reese did. Factual, clinical, the party, the drink, the symptoms, being taken upstairs, the locked room, every detail preserved and presented without emotion. What happened in that room? They pushed me onto the bed. Garrett Finch and Cole Vickers grabbed my wrists. Owen Dalton and Garrett Finch held my ankles. Marcus Thorne tore my shirt. Cole Vickers was filming with his phone. Thorne said, and I quote exactly, "Scream louder. Nobody's coming. Nobody cares. You're alone." What did you do? I defended myself. How? Reese described it. The kicks, the strikes, the 30 seconds of combat. Clinical descriptions of violence delivered in a flat, professional tone. Were you in fear for your life? Yes. Did you believe they were going to rape you? Yes, without question. Why? Because of what they said, how they positioned me, the fact that they were filming, the premeditation evident in their actions. And because 8 years ago, during my BOOD/S training, an instructor attempted to assault me in a similar manner. I learned then that waiting for help, hoping someone would intervene, that gets you hurt, that gets you destroyed. So I didn't wait. I fought. The courtroom was silent, the weight of her words settling over everyone present. Chen showed the video, the GoPro footage, the assault, the fight, the 30 seconds that changed everything. Is that you in the video? Yes. Is that an accurate representation of what happened? Yes, that's exactly what happened. No further questions. Martin Cross approached for cross-examination. He was good, professional, experienced, but he had an impossible job, defending the indefensible. Petty Officer Kavanaugh, you're trained in hand-to-hand combat, correct? Yes. Extensively trained? Yes. Would you say you're more skilled than the average person? Yes. More skilled than the average man? Than most, yes. So when four men, even four trained men, confronted you, you were confident you could defeat them? No, Cross paused, not expecting that answer. No? I wasn't confident, I was terrified. But being terrified doesn't mean being helpless. It just means you fight harder. It means survival instinct overrides everything else. It means you do whatever it takes to stay alive. But you did defeat them, all four, while drugged, while impaired. Yes, that suggests you weren't as impaired as you claim. That suggests adrenaline is a powerful thing when you're fighting for your life. That suggests training becomes instinct under stress. That suggests the will to survive can overcome chemical impairment. But none of that means I wasn't drugged. None of that makes what they did acceptable. Cross tried another angle. You've rejected multiple advances from men on base, haven't you? I've declined romantic interest, yes. Including from Marcus Thorne? Yes. Multiple times? Yes. Did you ever consider that your repeated rejections might have been unnecessarily harsh? That you might have led him on and then cut him off? Reese looked at him, let the silence build. Then, no means no. There's no harsh version of that. There's just no. And any man who doesn't respect that is a threat, not a suitor. I don't owe anyone romance. I don't owe anyone softness. I owe them professionalism and nothing more. But some might interpret your attitude as arrogant, superior. Some might. I can't control how people interpret professionalism. I can only control my actions. And my actions have always been professional. You admit you're not friendly with your colleagues? I'm professional with my colleagues. Friendly is optional. It's not required. It's not owed. And you prefer to be alone? Yes. Why? Reese was quiet for a moment. Then, because 8 years ago I trusted someone I shouldn't have. And I learned that the only person responsible for my safety is me. So yes, I prefer to be alone. Because alone, no one can hurt me. Because alone, I control every variable. Because alone is safe. Cross seemed to realize he was making the prosecution's case for them. That every answer Reese gave made her more sympathetic, made the defendants more monstrous. He shifted tactics. When you fought these men, did you intend to kill them? No. But you could have? Yes. You chose not to? I chose to neutralize the threat. Killing wasn't necessary. If it had been, I would have. But it wasn't, so I didn't. That shows restraint. That shows training. That shows discipline. That shows I used exactly the force necessary and no more. Cross tried a few more questions. None of them helped his clients. When he sat down, Reese could see the frustration on his face. The knowledge that he'd lost before he started. The trial continued for 2 more weeks. Expert witnesses explaining trauma responses and drug effects. Character witnesses for both sides. Defense arguments that the encounter was consensual until it wasn't. That the defendants were victims of entrapment. that Reese had overreacted. None of it mattered. The evidence was overwhelming. The pattern was clear. The verdict was inevitable. The judge deliberated for 4 hours, longer than expected, but thorough, making sure every detail was considered, making sure justice was done correctly. When the court reconvened, everyone stood. The tension was palpable, history being made in this moment. On the charge of conspiracy to commit sexual assault, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of drugging with intent to facilitate assault? Guilty. On the charge of false imprisonment? Guilty. On the charge of attempted rape? Guilty. All 4 defendants. All charges. Guilty. The word repeated until it became a mantra, a declaration, a promise that justice sometimes actually happened. Sentencing came a week later. The judge's final word on the matter: Marcus Thorne, dishonorable discharge, reduction to E1, forfeiture of all pay and allowances, 15 years confinement at United States Disciplinary Barracks, Fort Leavenworth. The architect of the crime receiving the harshest punishment. Garrett Finch, dishonorable discharge, reduction to E1, forfeiture of all pay and allowances, 12 years confinement. The enforcer, the one who'd done this before. Cole Vickers, dishonorable discharge, reduction to E1, forfeiture of all pay and allowances, 10 years confinement. The documentarian of evil. Owen Dalton, dishonorable discharge, reduction to E1, forfeiture of all pay and allowances, 3 years confinement, sentence suspended, 5 years probation. The reluctant participant who chose to do the right thing eventually, the judge spoke directly to them before sentencing, concluded, his voice carrying the weight of military tradition and moral authority. You took an oath, he said, to support and defend, to bear true faith and allegiance, to obey orders and regulations. You violated that oath in the most fundamental way possible. You targeted a fellow service member. You drugged her. You attempted to rape her. And you did so believing you would get away with it because others had protected you before. Because Captain Morrow had established that pattern of protection. Because the system had failed. He paused. Let that sink in. Let them understand the magnitude of their betrayal. The Navy is not a shield for predators. It is not a place where sexual violence is tolerated or ignored. And as long as I sit on this bench, men like you will face the full consequences of your actions. You are dismissed from service. You are confined to prison. And you will carry the weight of what you did for the rest of your lives. He brought down the gavel. Final. Absolute. This court is adjourned. Outside the courtroom, media swarmed. Cameras, microphones, questions shouted from every direction. The feeding frenzy of a story that had everything: military drama, sexual assault, systemic failure, a survivor who fought back. Reese walked through them without stopping. Master Chief Hargrave on one side, Special Agent Wolf on the other, creating a corridor, protecting her from the chaos. A reporter broke through, shoved a microphone at Reese. Young, ambitious, hungry for the soundbite. How does it feel to have justice? Reese stopped, looked at the reporter. Let the camera capture her face. Let the world see what survival looked like. Justice is them being convicted, she said. Justice is them going to prison. Justice is the system working the way it's supposed to. But feeling? I'll let you know when I figure that out. Because justice doesn't erase trauma. It just means the truth was heard. And sometimes that has to be enough. She kept walking. Behind them, Kira Westmont was speaking to another cluster of reporters. Confident now, finding her voice after 3 years of silence. This verdict doesn't just matter for Reese Kavanaugh, she was saying. It matters for every woman who's been told to stay quiet, to transfer away, to let it go for the good of the unit. It matters because it proves the system can work when people refuse to let it fail. When survivors refuse to be silent, when witnesses refused to look away. Reese heard that, stopped, turned back, made eye contact with Kira across the crowd, across the cameras and microphones and chaos. Kira smiled, sad but genuine, grateful but grieving for the years lost. Reese nodded once, acknowledgement, respect, solidarity, then continued walking, away from the courthouse, away from the media, toward whatever came next. The investigation into Captain Richard Morrow began 2 days after the verdict. He was relieved of command pending review. Within a week, evidence emerged of 5 other complaints he'd buried over his career. 5 other women, 5 other assaults ignored, 5 other betrayals of the oath he'd taken. He was court-martialed 6 months later, convicted of dereliction of duty, conduct unbecoming an officer, and obstruction of justice. Stripped of rank, pension, benefits, everything he'd built over 30 years of service, gone, erased, as it should be. The ripple effects continued, spreading through naval special warfare like a shockwave. New protocols implemented, mandatory bystander intervention training, independent reporting channels outside chain of command, anonymous tip lines, victim advocates embedded in every unit, zero-tolerance policies with teeth. It wouldn't stop every assault, nothing could, but it was something, a start, a foundation to build on. Reese watched these changes from a distance. She'd been transferred after the trial, not as punishment, as protection. Too much media attention, too much controversy, too much. Petty Officer Kavanaugh, he said, I read your file, all of it, the classified parts and the parts that were on CNN. Yes, sir. You've had a hell of a year. Yes, sir. Wade leaned back in his chair, studied her with eyes that had seen too much, and learned from all of it. Some of the men here, they're not sure about you. They've heard stories about what happened, about what you did. Some think you're a hero. Some think you're a problem. Some just think you're a woman who doesn't belong in this unit. And you, sir? I think you're an operator who did her job, who survived an assault and made sure her attackers faced justice. That's all that matters to me. He paused. But you need to know, the attention you bring, the controversy, it's going to follow you. Maybe for the rest of your career. Maybe forever. You okay with that? Reese didn't hesitate. Yes, sir. Good, because we've got work to do. And I don't. The months that followed were intense. Training, operations, deployments to places she couldn't name, doing things she couldn't talk about. Reese threw herself into the work, became the operator she'd always been, before the assault, before the trial, before everything. But different too, harder, sharper, less willing to tolerate bullshit, more willing to call out problems when she saw them. The voice she'd found in that courtroom, she kept using it. Bryn Ashford completed her SEAL training a year later, earned her Trident, requested assignment to the same unit as Reese. The request was granted. They worked together, trained together, built something like friendship, though Reese still kept distance. Old habits died hard, but they died, slowly. 2 years after the trial, Reese was promoted to senior chief, leadership role, training new operators, shaping the next generation. And that's when she proposed the program. Combat mandated across naval special warfare. Reese became the program's first director. She trained hundreds of women over the next 4 years, showed them what she'd learned, how to fight, how to survive, how to refuse to be a victim, how to be warriors instead of targets. Some of them would never need it, some would, but all of them would know they could. And sometimes knowing you can is enough to make predators choose easier prey. Sometimes preparation is the best defense. Master Chief Hargrave retired in his 36th year of service. Big ceremony, awards, speeches about leadership and sacrifice and dedication to something larger than yourself. Reese attended, sat in the front row, dress uniform, ribbons catching light, watching the man who'd saved her life in ways he'd never fully understand. When it was over, Hargrave found her. "Walk with me," he said. They walked along the waterline, same place they'd walked years ago. Wind and waves and pelicans. Full circle. "I'm proud of you," Hargrave said. "Not just for what you survived, for what you built after, for turning trauma into purpose, for making sure others don't face what you faced alone. I had help. I had you. You had a mentor who believed in you. There's a difference. You did the work. You made the choices. You stood up when it would have been easier to stay down." They walked in silence for a while. Comfortable silence between people who understood each other. That they had full military honors, flag-draped coffin, 21 gun salute, taps played in the fading light, everything he'd earned. Reese stood with the honor guard, holding the Navy cross he'd left her, tears on her face but standing straight, honoring him the way he'd honored her, by refusing to break. When they folded the flag and presented it to his sister, the only family he had left, Reese's hand tightened on the Navy cross. 10 years ago, Hargrave had lost the daughter he couldn't save, but he'd spent those 10 years making sure Reese survived, making sure she thrived, making sure his daughter's memory lived on in the women he protected. That debt could never be repaid, only honored, and Reese would spend the rest of her career honoring it. After the funeral, Bryn found her. "You okay?" Bryn asked. "No," Reese said, honest, direct. "But I will be. That's what he taught me, that survival isn't about being okay. It's about getting up anyway, moving forward anyway, fighting anyway." They stood together, two survivors, two operators, two women who'd learned the hard way that strength wasn't about not getting hurt. It was about getting hurt and standing back up anyway, about turning scars into armor, about refusing to let trauma define you. 5 years after the assault, Reese was promoted to Master Chief, the youngest female SEAL to reach that rank, breaking barriers even while carrying the weight of what she'd survived. The ceremony was small, professional, no media, just her chain of command and a few close colleagues, the people who mattered. Captain Wade pinned on her new anchors. "You've come a long way, Master Chief," he said. "Yes, sir." "Where to from here?" Reese looked around the room, at the younger female operators watching, learning, growing, at Bryn, now a petty officer first class, grinning with pride, at the future she'd helped build. "Forward," Reese said. "Always forward, battle-tested, but unbroken, never broken." Reese set the photo aside, picked up Hargrave's Navy cross, held it, felt its weight, its promise, its reminder that she hadn't done this alone, that good people existed, that mentors mattered, that survival was possible. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty room, to Hargrave, to everyone who'd helped her survive, to herself for refusing to give up. Then she put it away, turned off the light, lay down. Tomorrow there would be training, new recruits, new challenges. The work continued. It always would. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, Reese Kavanaugh slept peacefully. No nightmares, no fear, no locked doors. Just rest. Deep, earned rest. She'd survived. She'd fought. She'd won. Not just the physical fight in that room, the bigger fight, the one that mattered, the fight to remain herself, to refuse to let trauma define her, to build something better from the wreckage. And that victory, that quiet, personal victory, was worth more than any medal or rank or recognition. Because Reese Kavanaugh had won herself back, and no one could ever take that away. 3 years later, the obstacle course at Coronado looked the same. Same rope climb, same gravel, same Pacific wind cutting across the base. But the woman standing at the edge was different. Stronger, sure, complete. Master Chief Reese Kavanaugh, 42 years old, 24 years of service, watched 20 female recruits struggle through the course. Among them, 3 who'd graduated from her combatives in self-defense program. 3 who knew how to fight back. 3 who would never be easy targets. Beside her, Senior Chief Bryn Ashford held a stopwatch. "Martinez is falling behind," Bryn said. "Let her. She'll catch up or she won't. That's her choice, her fight." "Sounds familiar," Bryn smiled. Reese didn't smile back, but something softened in her eyes, something that might, eventually, become peace. "You caught up. You made the choice to keep fighting. Nobody made it for you." A recruit hit the ground hard, lay there for a second, then got back up, kept moving, refused to quit. Reese nodded approval. That was the lesson. Not avoiding the fall, getting back up after. Every single time. No matter how hard, no matter how much it hurt. Her phone buzzed. Email from Kira Westmont's nonprofit. 500th survivor placed in support program today. Lives saved because you refused to stay silent. Thank you, Kay. Reese pocketed the phone, felt the weight of those words. 500 women who'd found help because 2 survivors had refused to let the system win. Because 2 voices had become a chorus. Because silence had been broken. "Good news?" Bryn asked. "Someone's getting help. Someone who needs it. That's all we can do, right? Make sure the next one isn't alone. Make sure they have options. Make sure they know survival is possible." Reese looked at the recruits, at the younger women fighting through pain and doubt, at the future SEALs who'd face their own locked rooms, their own moments of choice, their own decisions about who they'd be in their darkest moments. Some would be victims, some would be survivors, but all of them would know they had options. They had training, they had power, they had a voice, because Reese Kavanaugh had made sure of it. "Master Chief," Bryn said, "you good?" Reese touched her pocket. Hargrave's Navy Cross was at home now, mounted above her desk. The knife he'd given her still in her dresser. The man himself, 8 years gone but never forgotten. His lesson remained. Trust your instincts. Fight when necessary. Survive. Build something better. Leave the world improved by your presence. "Yeah," Reese said. "I'm good. Better than good. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Doing what I'm supposed to do." The recruits finished the course. Exhausted. Bruised. Unbroken. Just like her. Reese turned away from the course, toward the building where her next class waited. 20 more women. 20 more warriors in training. 20 more potential survivors who'd never have to face what she faced alone. The work continued. It always would, because that's what survivors did. They survived. Then they made sure others could too. They turned trauma into purpose. They built legacies from ashes. They refused to let darkness win. And Reese Kavanaugh wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The fight continued. The mission endured. The next generation needed training, and she was ready. Always ready. Always moving forward. Always refusing to surrender. Because that's what Master Chiefs did. That's what survivors did. That's what warriors did. They fought. They endured. They won. One day at a time. One student at a time. One life saved at a time. And in the quiet moments, when the work was done and the base settled into night, Reese Kavanaugh could look in the mirror and see someone she respected. Someone she'd fought hard to become. Someone who'd survived the unsurvivable and built something beautiful from the wreckage. That woman staring back, scarred but unbroken, damaged but functioning, traumatized but thriving. That woman was worth everything she'd endured to become. And that was enough. More than enough. That was victory.